Hello and welcome back to the channel. Amber here, joined again by Laura, and we are once again in audio format today, covering the Spectator magazine in one of the most unhinged and problematic articles that I think I've come across in a very long time concerning Bridgerton, and wow.
Yeah, wow is right.
Let me kind of set the stage here because I'm not going to link the article in the video. I don't really want to give them any clicks. So I'll summarize here, and this is a summary of the article. And this is written by Zoe Strimpel. Bridgerton is an American series that reimagines Regency London with a diverse cast, challenging traditional historical whiteness. The show's latest season highlights intersectionality by featuring a non-traditional romantic lead, Penelope, played by Nicola Coughlan, who the author of the article claims is not attractive. While the series is praised for its diversity, the article questions the plausibility of, and I quote, a fat girl winning the love of a handsome aristocrat on screen. Despite Coughlan's talents, the author doubts her character's romantic storyline will resonate with the audience due to her being, and these are her words, not mine, fat.
You know, the persecution fetish this woman has is unreal. And this entire article reads like being an overinflated Reddit rant that is cosplaying as journalism.
That sums it up pretty well. And I think the big, shocking thing for me is that this isn't a tabloid. This is an actual, magazine that covers news and politics and obviously entertainment. But this is disgusting.
Yeah,
I've seen people online putting all of their differences aside in the Bridgerton fandom. And in any fandom, take Game of Thrones for example, you've got like the Rhaenyra stans and the Alicent fans, and there's a lot of back and forth and jabbing at one another. But no, Bridgerton set everything aside. We're coming for this woman's throat.
you know, one thing I thought while I was reading the article is tell me you don't understand the meaning of the fantasy genre without telling me you don't understand the meaning of the fantasy genre. People like this woman are ruining it. The whole point is it's fantasy. It can be literally anything. And this strange obsession with white perfection that is becoming such an overwhelming tone in the fantasy spaces online. It's really off-putting to me.
No, it is. And I mean that's the thing that I think upsets me so much is how unhinged people are when they're like, that's not how I imagined this character. They can't look that way. But let's be real. If you're a casting director, I'm not coming in and being like, okay, we're casting for blue eyes, unless it's that serious to the character. Like you have characters where it's like, uh-oh, we don't know the lineage or the history. Is this character actually the child of this other character? So something like blue eyes might be important to the plot,
Yeah,
right?
but context still
But
exists.
yeah, but if you're casting, eye color doesn't act. Skin color doesn't act. You cast for who does the job the best.
Absolutely.
That's really all that needs to go into it. So this unhinged meltdown of people right now in terms of that person can't look like this, it's really dumb. It's really dumb.
I think it was there is at one point in the article where the woman talks about how so much of this is the blame is to be put on Gen Z for their influence here. But I really think that she has predictably misrepresented the political and social influence of Gen Z with the effect of the internet offering us a realistic view of the world in real time.
No, I would agree. And I would also say that she's completely missing the point of what people who are into like fantasy and romance are into. Women don't read romance because every single character is a smoking hot babe. That's not the case. Women read fantasy and romantic fantasy because they can self insert. They can say, hey, look at this character. They're kind of boring. They have, mousy brown hair. They're soft spoken. They're like me. It's something like Bridgerton where they're creating it in a way where anyone can see themselves in any of the characters.
Absolutely. I think the diversity aspect is actually one of my favorite things about Bridgerton because it adds so much richness to the visuals and the story itself. There was actually, with you bringing up the casting director portion, there's a quote that I have from the article itself that says, "The fact is, if you're a casting director, you can fill your stage or screen with people of any sexuality, gender identity, age within reason, ethnic background, religion, health status, psychological orders, in quotations, neurodiversity, or even disabilities such as potential or as partial sight or hearing, and they can still look like perfect tens and thus plausible romantic leads." This is the most underhanded, shaded comment, I think, in the entire article. She puts anybody who experiences marginalization and says, well, as long as they're hot, we can deal with the fact that they have things about them that I don't like. But if they're not hot, this is totally, totally unacceptable. Get them off the screen. This has to be one of the worst fucking takes I've ever seen.
She's really telling on herself because I think this is her speaking about like what she thinks, for example, men find attractive, which is absolutely ridiculous because she keeps bringing up Penelope and not being thin. For one, the actress is literally 5 foot. She's tiny. But on top of that, like Penelope has all of these interesting qualities, right? She's extremely intelligent. She's able to maneuver this world in a way where people don't see her. And she's collecting all of this data, getting all of the gossip. Her being overlooked due to what she looks like is a huge part of her storyline. She doesn't get those details if everyone has their eyes on her.
You can tell the author didn't comprehend that aspect of the storyline itself.
Right. At one point, she calls Colin a prince, where I'm like, is Colin a
Is he?
prince? Okay.
Is he?
And also, like, why is she holding Colin, like, up on this pedestal of, like,
Mega
oh, like,
hotness?
he's a perfect, yeah, he's a perfect 10. And I'm like, that's not
He's just
okay.
fine.
Okay.
He's just fine.
He's just Colin.
Yeah, her weird position that she comes from that speaks so heavily from the male gaze is wild to me that you would say this with your whole chest in 2024. And I know she makes little jabs about like in the directions that feminism is moving with her little comment about how if you haven't been paying attention to feminism for the last decade, well, ma'am, we can tell you have not.
Right, which is ironic because in some of her little bios, she's like, I focus a lot on feminism. And it's like, okay, but what kind?
I mean, being an enemy of feminism might be her focus. I don't know how she believes that her words and actions are working to further the cause of feminism in a positive, meaningful way.
Yeah, I want to quote someone online that I follow, London River. She said 2 notes. As a woman who finds women attractive, and she's talking about Penelope, she's hot. More importantly, most men aren't as shallow as she assumes. If she thinks a man wouldn't want a kind, loving, intelligent woman just because she isn't skinny, this columnist isn't giving men enough credit either. Period.
Yeah, that is a really good point to make. I think that there's also like room. If you read the article, you can tell there's a lot of like pro-Israel coding in it. Okay, so she talks about like how the more you identify with intersectional marginalization, the more victimized you're viewed historically, except for the Jewish people. They are not. She somehow is like pushing this point that the Jewish community is a glaring exception to being marginalized and oppressed.
She's doing it in a sarcastic
Yeah.
way. Like,
It's very
oh,
sarcastic.
everyone except.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where she seems to believe that nobody cares about Jewish people or anti-Semitism anymore. And she's giving willful stupidity at max level. So it's hard to take her seriously whatsoever. I imagine the only people that are taking her seriously are people who regularly read The Spectator, which is listed on the political bias scale as right-leaning conservative publication. So it makes a lot of sense to me that they would make an article like this that's basically pandering to that audience specifically, regardless of how tone deaf it is to the overall picture of society.
Yeah, and the article as a whole, on top of it being completely tone deaf, the way that she has it out for this actress
Is weird.
it makes my blood boil in a way that I don't think that I've seen an article like this taking jabs at an actress. Like, I don't think I've ever seen something like this. And maybe this is just because, like, we've been covering Bridgerton that now I start getting more things on my news feed. But even with other series that I've covered, I don't think I've ever seen something like this from, a quote unquote legitimate publication.
Yeah.
Where you have someone just straight up saying, this character is not believable because of how she looks in a way that is so disgustingly pointed at this actress that I have to imagine that she's just got it out for this woman. And the article really has nothing to do with Bridgerton. It's just a way for her to shoehorn her politics into something in a glib way.
Yeah. I have to wonder if it speaks to her own insecurities because she sounds like incredibly hateful towards anyone who is not thin.
Yeah. Yes.
She's, you know who she reminds me of is Pearl Davis. For anyone who doesn't know exactly who Pearl Davis is, you would probably recognize her as the redheaded woman who is always going on podcast and pandering to the male gaze and the red pill mentality. That's what this woman reminds me of, is a woman who is so insecure in herself that she looks to men for validation and as a source of confidence. And the idea that another woman who doesn't fit these like structured, antiquated ideals of what make women have value and things like that, like she's getting lost in looking for outside validation. She seems like somebody who can't really validate herself. So in response to how she's feeling about this woman being lauded as doing a really great job, like as Nicola doing a really great job in the season. And it is an incredibly acted show. Her weird obsession with about how Penelope's character couldn't possibly do these things solely because she's fat is unadulterated insanity.
I mean, I teeter-tottered on thinking, do I even want to cover this? Do I even want to talk about this because it's so upsetting? But also, I don't know, like I think it's an important conversation to be had.
I do
about
too.
how unhinged things are in terms of like, again, quote unquote media, where you have people like reviewing shows. She's not getting to anything relevant about the story, about why people watch this show, about why people enjoy it. There's nothing of that in there except for her being like, oh, like it's well acted, I guess, but not believable. Ma'am, believability is not the point here,
Oh my God, if I wanted to watch nonfiction, I would watch nonfiction. The biggest point of fantasy is that it exists with outside of our current reality. Of course, I enjoy watching shows like Bridgerton that really shake things up and give things a new, like, perspective.
Yeah, and like you said, it wouldn't be as interesting if it was just historically accurate, straight from the history books. Because if I want that, I'm going to open up Wikipedia.
Right.
Like,
But also, you know what show I bet this woman, like, probably loves is The Crown.
I was just going
Like,
to, I
if
knew you were
you
going to
want
say
historical
that.
accuracy, then watch a nonfiction show that gives a shit about it. Don't come to the fantasy genre and expect everything to fit into tiny little boxes that you've organized as what's right for the world.
Yep. And I want to end on this because I think Penelope and Nicola Coughlan have been an absolute treasure this season. And I think that so many people are really interested in the story of Penelope because they can see themselves in this character. And when you're out there trying to tear other women down based on their looks,
You missed the entire point of everything, so don't call yourself a feminist.
and also
Oh,
glass houses,
the
lady.
thinnest of glass houses here.
All right. Thanks for joining us on this rant today. I usually don't cover things like this, but I don't know. I'm feeling pretty froggy this week apparently, and I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Let us know if you've actually heard about this on some of the Bridgerton spaces, and we will be back with more Bridgerton in the future. Can't wait for the next grouping of episodes. Thanks, Laura, for joining me
Thanks
once
for having
again,
me.
and we will see you next time.